I have to apologize. It dawned on me last night. Something's missing. Summertime rendering is missing. I am like 2-3 days late on posting my video for summertime rendering, and I apologize, and what a crazy episode it is. I have this feeling like every time I go, I really need this answer, and then they give it to me. So, yes, the big reveal for Tokiko is, in fact, this episode 11, and this is my thoughts on the episode. It's a lot to go through, so let's jump right into it. Yeah, so we have essentially 3 vantage points. 2 of them meet each other at some point that we go through with this episode. I guess to start off things with Mio. Mio at some point is standing in front of her house, ends up seeing a hair tie, realizes it's Shiori's, and yes... Shadow Shiori shows up. I don't know. There was a side of me that was kind of I hate this thought process. A side of me that was kind of hoping that that wasn't it for Shiori. I'm really curious at this point, what are we doing with Shadow Shiori? It obviously seems like she is like it seemed to have insinuated that Shiori's shadow is actually the shadow that was produced from Heine. Like this is like directly connected with Heine. There is obviously it seemed like with her battle with Ryunosuke, she seemed like she was out of the norms. Like she was doing so many things that none of the other shadows do. She hit it somehow managed to rip from it. And again, we reveal this episode, even though she sledgehammered Shiori's shadow, it seeped through the shadow into the concrete down underground. So this thing's like incredibly powerful. It's outside of the normal rules that we have shadows. So yeah, that was interesting to see that she's still around. And that would explain why I guess Shinpei would have seen Heine in that flashback. When they were having that flashback, Heine grabbed him, and it was Shadow Shiori was a part of that whole flashback. But yeah, Mio goes to follow it, and it's saying that Shinpei is over here because she's wondering where Shinpei's at. And then, yes, Tetsu shows up. Really fun little conversation between them. I think Tetsu's got, like, the most, like, deepest dialect accent out of everybody. Like, just listening to him talk, it's like, holy crap. I wonder how... I guess foreign this sounds to most people in Japan that don't have a dialect or that heavy a dialect. I mean, it's just like, I don't know, somebody in one area of this country running into somebody that's super southern or something like that, which does bug me whenever they do translate that in the subtitles. So yeah, she manages to get Tetsu to follow her by saying, you'll be seen as a hero, even though he doesn't want to stink. So they end up going down there, end up bringing into some bars where Shiori's at. She flashes the bars to copy it, then to consume it, and says it's yuck. Which leads them to continue to follow them. It looks like at that point, Ryunosuke ends up following them as well. And that's kind of all we really get of Mio and Tetsu. Again, they're down there. It seems like obviously Shadow Shiori or Heine is luring them down there. That's going to be the big question. Oh, the other question mark is this is the Shadow Shiori that they took out, and then there's another one. But again, based on what Ryunosuke envisioned happened on sledgehammering the Shadow Shiori and it seeping into the ground, unless there's another copy that Mio is following, this is going to be the same one. But the big question mark is why are they getting Mio involved? Mio's shadow is already gone. Well, I guess at this point, we don't know. At this point, it could have seeped into the ground too. I mean, but the assumption is that the shadow for Mio is gone. Now, could be wanting Tetsu, but why would it come to lure Mio initially? That's going to be the big question mark. What is Mio so special for? We already are kind of assuming that Ushio is very important. Again, I've kind of speculated in previous episode impressions that I think that Ushio is going to be special somehow. Like, she's going to be part of a certain bloodline. My assumption is that she's going to probably be a descendant of Heine herself, which would explain why she has unique powers and possibly have something addition to maybe just the bright eye of Heine. So, in effect, Ushio being a part of that bloodline, obviously, Mio is a part of that bloodline. So she could be special somehow. So they might want Mio for some reason. And obviously, Ushio has said to protect Mio because she might know in the past that Mio is special somehow and that they're going to go after her. On the side of Ryunosuke and Nezu, they end up falling down underground because they know that something's going on down there. They end up eventually not really bumping into, but seeing Mio and Tetsu, end up starting to follow them, but kind of get dragged behind. And this is interesting because when I seen Ryunosuke and Nezu having to fight off the shadows, I was like, well, then why isn't Tetsu and Mio? It's showing them fighting these things. Again, that's the implication there is that Shiori or Heine, again, I'm not sure what this point, is luring Mio but not attacking them because she wants to bring them in. So the shadows aren't going to attack Mio and Tetsu, but they will attack the people that are following them. And then, yes, eventually, Shadow Shiori, or Haine as we're assuming now, directly connected. My guess is, again, that Shiori is, the Shadow Shiori is like a projection of Haine. That's why it seemed to indicate that she knows a lot of information, but I don't think that she is directly Haine, but a shadow produced by Haine. There's an interesting conflict that happens here because both Nezu and Ryunosuke have a conflict in what they think they need to do, because obviously Ryunosuke really badly wants to take down these shadows. So any logic is lost at this point. He wants to take these down. But Nezu, being more on the defensive side, he's more cautious. He never takes anything for granted. I mean, it's a whole comment at the beginning of the episode is this whole idea of he doesn't believe in pre-anything. Like, he can't tell what's the future. But he says specifically that they need to flee, that these are not shadow copies of humans. And this is oddly something I never really thought about. Like, the whole scene at the festival and these huge, tall creatures that were shadows. My assumption was that was just the true form of shadows. Like, this is like the generals of the shadows. But here Nezu is implying, and this is going to be just his speculation, Nezu is implying here that these are copies of a different being. That these are not humans' copies, but these are copies. He's assuming that these are copies of something, which then goes into the whole question mark of, what are they copies of? Are we talking about copies of, I don't know, some old prehistoric beings, like some old long time ago aliens or something like that? Or demons of old, that these were shadow, like there was demons around at some point and these shadows managed to copy them, and now the demons are gone and now we have humans here that they need to consume off of, and these are like the oldest of the old of these shadows, and so he can essentially mimic that old form, which is this nasty looking tall powerful being, which again, something that Nezu wants to have nothing to do with. But again, it brings up a really interesting question. What beings did this shadow, specifically in the ones that we've seen in the festival, what did they copy? What are these beings? But yes, running into Shadow Shiori, this is kind of a troubling thing, because this is where we're already getting kind of signs that things are going to go downhill. Like, we are in game right now for this reset. I don't know if this is going to continue any further, because yes, at this point, Nezu is taken down, and it seems like Ryunosuke or Hizuru has been mortally wounded. But there's quite a bit in this conversation. We essentially have this Shadow Shiori reveal that she knows who Ryunosuke is. And this obviously shocks him. Like, we never gave you your name. That, again, going back to the conversation with Shinpei, they don't want them to know what, I guess, Ryunosuke and Hizuru's backstory is. That there's something back there that they cannot let them know about. And again, this is probably indicating that she knew something, or at least she had a sort of power that is going to be less effective if they know the information, which, again, seems like they learned. I'm curious if eventually they'll get into how they figured that out. Again, they could have just taken a picture of Ryunosuke or Hizuru and figured that out. It does indicate that she's already looked into her mind. Can't look into the mind of Nezu because, again, technically Nezu has already been copied and he killed his copy. But the Shadow Shiori says that she realized who she was based on their little chat in the children's room, or Shiori's room. They question at this point if this is Haine, which it seems like it's all but confirmed at this point, somehow directly connected to Haine. And this is the point where Shadow Shiori says it's been 14 years, that she doesn't have any business with her. All you are is memories and the personality. Again, insinuating that that's all Ryunosuke is within Hizuru, is just his personality and memories, not his actual body. And they want to know where the body is that stole Mother's eye. So, this is opening up a lot of doors at this point. Pretty much what they're insinuating here is that Ryunosuke, the real Ryunosuke from back 14 years ago, possibly stole the right eye of Haine. And that's probably what led up to him being killed. But at least insinuates that he got away with the eye, got away from the shadows, and did something with the eye. Because, yes, he died, he seemingly died that day, but his personality and his memories went to Hizuru, but he ditched the eye somewhere. And that makes me believe that maybe at that point it was given off to Shinpei's parents, Ushio. Somebody has got the eye at that point. And again, we know at this point that Shinpei currently has that eye. So how did it get to him? The only thing we have is this one brief moment on his way to the island that Shinpei had a dream of Ushio giving him the eye. But did she have it, or did somebody else have it? Did they use an image of Ushio in order to at least make him accept the eye? But either way, they don't care about Nezu or Hizuru or Ryunosuke at this point, because again, it's just Hizuru, which has no value. Ryunosuke, who's just a personality memories, doesn't have the possession of the body that has the possession of the eye, so they're just going to get rid of them. And yes, Nezu's pretty much taken down, and it seems like, based on what he's saying, they mortally wounded Ryunosuke, or Hizuru. Again, a lot of really, really opening the pages to Ryunosuke and that whole history. Hopefully we get a full backstory of what's going on there. Which makes me wonder if the reason... Well, obviously we know why they couldn't check the memories of Nezu. They can't flash and take his data anymore because a shadow did that once and he killed it. Now, we already kind of had an idea that Ryunosuke or Hizuru could be flashed, but I was kind of curious if she wasn't going to be, because she somehow has an ability to somehow get that data from Ryunosuke originally. Jumping from them, the other perspective obviously is Shinpei and team, Ushio and So. And at some point they're moving around. They mention the idea that every single crustacean and sea life that's around them is essentially shadow. Like it seems like they are recreating this sea life in this cavern. It seems based off of Nezu. This is a cavern that was something that his grandfather told him about that used to be kind of revealed whenever the sea levels went down, but at some point during this occupation, the military just kind of destroyed the entranceway. But it was kind of insinuated at that point that that was the resting place that Hiruko went to at some point. Which, yes, this is the point in which Tokiko shows up. Yes, we finally get the big reveal for Tokiko that I've been just craving for a long time at this point. What is going on with Tokiko? She has the squinty eye things which you can never trust, but additionally, it seems like she's always dropping these hints that she knows something. Again, the whole festival scene where she said she bloodied her hands, or she stained her hands for no reason. But yes, this is the point where she kind of reveals everything, that yes, she was told everything by her father. She did not want to trust So with this information, and So is obviously very upset about this whole situation. Her whole deal being here was to capture Ushio, that she's obviously a defective and that she needs to capture her, and seems like, based on Shinpei kind of giving up, that she's accepting a surrender at this point, and is going to reveal everything to him, which is a big big question mark to me. I figured at this point that Heine would know that Shinpei is a threat, but maybe they haven't gathered that information yet from Shinpei, obviously indicating that maybe he hasn't been flashed at this point, that Heine would know that he's not a threat yet. But yeah, Tokiko eventually brings them all to Heine, where she is currently feasting. Apparently every day at 9 o'clock they feast. We did get a brief scene of Hishikata, the father, at this clinic, telling some robotic sounding lady, Negoro, that they can take this investigator off to the feeding at 9 o'clock. So apparently the investigator's gone, so there's no help from him. It does seem like Ushio kind of goes along with this surrender, because it does seem like she kind of gets, from Shinpei's perspective, that the idea here is to go as... It's already game over. Like, they're already accepting at this point they failed. They're captured. They can't go up against these two big shadows. Everything's bad. But the idea is that let's just go along with this. Let's surrender and give ourselves up, because we can at least get more information than just fighting and dying. And then we can use that information after a reset. Completely assuming that he's going to get a chance to reset, which is a big gamble, but at the same time, we'll get more reveals that way, so that's good. But yeah, obviously greatly implying that this cavern, again, that's been around for a long time, is the resting place of Hiroko, that the shadows are all moving around this area, and that it seems like Hishikata using Tokiko is, I guess, playing into this ritual where they'll bring bodies to feed to Heine or Hiroko. And it's probably going to turn into one of those things where it's they have no choice. Like, probably what I'm guessing at this point is that Hishikata over here has been spending his entire life, like their family, their lineage probably has always been giving sacrifices to Heine or whatever, and they're doing it willingly to keep, like, its wrath down. Like, they get to choose what they give to it. Which leads me to believe that probably anybody that is cremated is probably just food for the thing, and they just probably give them ashes on the side. But I'm gonna assume at this point that it's kind of like to keep it at bay while they figure out a way to fight back. I'm going to assume that Hishikata has been trying to figure out a way of fighting back. And again, I think that is Ushio. I think, again, that Ushio, the Shadow Ushio, is a product of Hishikata. And again, he left that off to Tokiko to have to handle this as well. And that would be why she is staying in her hands for no reason. She thinks that she was keeping at bay, and now suddenly it's gotten loose. And again, they would probably assume that So has such a huge mindset of justice that she probably would not been the best person to choose to hand this off to. So they chose Tokiko, which leads me to understand why Mio is coming down there, because the moment I seen Tokiko, I'm like, yeah, Mio's going to show up and really throw off Tokiko. Tokiko, I don't know if they're going for a Yuri aspect or if it's just an idea that Tokiko, being like a childhood friend of Mio's, doesn't want her to be harmed by this. And she even says that, please don't tell Mio. I'll show you everything, just please don't tell Mio. Which again is assuming that they're going to let Shinpei leave at this point. So yeah, with that said, obviously next week I am super hyped for. I'm not looking forward to it just because it seems like Hizuru's not doing well and I don't want to see her die. But at the same time, I know we're going to probably get hopefully a very interesting conversation with Heine and really get some big reveals. And yes, probably going to have to figure out how Shinpei plans on getting rid of himself. My assumption is that he possibly has another weapon that was cloned by Ushio that he could use, but we'll have to wait and see. Anyhow, I think that's everything for episode 11. A lot to go through. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. As always, if you did, I would appreciate if you hit that like button down below, comment, let me know what's thought of the episode, and if I missed anything. Subscribe if you have not already, share this video if you can, support us on Patreon, or throw a tips link in the description below. We also have a super thanks button down there. We definitely appreciate everybody that supports us, and y'all take care.